Hey, you ever catch yourself reacting to something and think, wait a second, why did I just do that? Like you're running on autopilot, maybe? Following a script you didn't even write?
Oh, absolutely. That feeling is incredibly common, and it's exactly what we're diving into today.
Okay.
We're exploring a really fascinating idea from the Toltec wisdom tradition, the concept of domestication, as it's presented in Don Miguel Ruiz's powerful book, The Four Agreements.
Okay, domestication. When I hear that, I immediately think of like training a pet. Is that the kind of thing we're talking about for
Yeah,
us?
in a way, yeah.
Right.
It's a useful analogy. Think of it this way. Our mission, sort of in this deep dive, is to understand how society, right, from when we're really young, essentially installs a set of rules and beliefs in us. Almost like programming a computer, you know? We want to see how this shapes the way you think, the way you act, often without you even realizing it.
Right. Completely unconscious.
Exactly. And hopefully point toward that crucial first step in maybe taking back the driver's seat in your own life.
So this domestication process, how does it get a hold of us?
Well, according to the Toltec perspective, we're born into what they call the dream of the planet.
The dream of the planet. Okay.
Yeah, imagine this dream as the collective reality of humanity, all the shared rules, beliefs, laws, religions, cultural norms, all the stuff we all, mostly agree on. From the moment you're born, the people already in this dream, your parents, teachers, religious figures, they start teaching you how to dream the way society dreams. It's like they're constantly directing your attention and introducing the rules, often just through sheer repetition. Think about how many times you heard share your toys or look both ways growing up.
Yeah, it's like this constant drip feed of information, isn't it? You don't even register most of it after a while.
Absolutely. And language is a really key tool in this whole process. Ruiz describes language as a code of agreements.
A code. Okay.
Yeah, every word we use, every symbol, carries an agreed-upon meaning. Once you learn the code, your attention is hooked, and energy in the form of information, belief gets transferred.
Wow.
And you didn't choose to speak the language you do, right? Or the religion you were raised in, or even your fundamental moral values. These were all established long before you arrived.
You didn't even choose your own name.
Exactly. You didn't choose your own name. That's a wild thought, isn't it? That so much of what we consider normal, just the way things are, was never actually a conscious decision on our part. And as children, we have this incredible capacity for belief and almost unwavering faith in what adults tell us.
Right, you just trust them.
You just trust them.
Yes.
So we readily agree with the information being passed down from this dream of the planet through the people around us. Agreement is how we essentially store information.
Okay.
The outside world might grab our attention, sure, but it's the agreement that makes it stick. The moment we agree with something, we believe it. And that's what Ruiz calls faith, or unconditional belief.
So our entire belief system, the very foundation of how we see ourselves in the world, it's all built on these early agreements, and we probably don't even remember making most of them.
Precisely. You might have even pushed back against some of these early lessons, resisted a bit.
Yeah.
But as a child, you didn't really have the power to win those battles consistently. The eventual result is that we surrender to these beliefs, we agree to them.
Okay.
And this whole process, the outside dream shaping our inner world, that's what Ruiz terms the domestication of humans.
Oh.
Think of it like you said, like domesticating animals. You train them with rewards for good behavior and punishment for bad. The same thing happens to us.
Punishment and reward. Like getting praise for a good grade, maybe, and being scolded for misbehaving.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
We learn the names of things. We're told how to act, what's acceptable, what's not. The dream of the planet gives us these ready-made ideas of what it means to be a good person or a successful person. And a crucial part of this is learning to judge. We judge ourselves. We judge other people. We judge everything.
And where does this constant judging come from? It feels relentless sometimes.
It is relentless. It's a direct consequence of this domestication. Children are essentially trained through this system of punishment and reward. We hear, you're a good boy, or you're a good girl, when we please our parents, right?
Yeah.
When we don't, we get labeled bad. This creates a really deep-seated need for approval and a fear of disapproval.
That makes sense.
So to get that reward, which is often just attention and avoid the punishment, we start pretending. We act in ways that aren't truly us, trying to fit into the mold of what others expect.
Right, putting on a mask.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This fear of rejection then morphs into this fundamental fear of not being good enough. So In trying to fit in, we often lose touch with our authentic selves, who we really are underneath.
It sounds like we end up internalizing all these external rules and expectations then.
Absolutely. We become, essentially, a collection of other people's beliefs, your parents' beliefs, your teacher's beliefs, society's beliefs. Our own natural inclinations get buried under this layer of domestication.
Wow.
And it becomes so ingrained that eventually we become our own trainers, our own domesticators.
Oh, okay. How does that work?
We internalize the whole system of reward and punishment. We don't need someone else to tell us we've done wrong anymore. We do it to ourselves based on this internal rule book, what Ruiz calls the Book of Law.
This book of law.
Yeah.
What exactly is in that? Is it like actual laws?
Not quite like legal laws, no. Imagine it more as your personal internal constitution. It's
Yes.
filled with all the agreements you've ever made, consciously or unconsciously, with yourself and with others. It's the unquestioned set of rules that governs your thoughts and actions. Whatever is written in your book of law becomes your absolute truth. You use it to judge everything, your behavior, your thoughts, your feelings, even the world around you. And these judgments often go against your own inner wisdom, your intuition. Even moral codes, what's right and wrong, become part of this programmed book of law. One by one, all these agreements get stored.
And they just run the show.
They end up running your life like a software program.
Exactly. So it's like we have this inner critic constantly looking over our shoulder, judging everything.
That's a perfect way to put it. Ruiz describes an inner judge who uses this book of law to constantly evaluate everything you do and don't do, think and don't think, feel and don't feel. Everything lives under the scrutiny of this judge.
Wow.
Every single time you step outside the lines of your book of law, the judge declares you guilty, deserving of punishment, and filled with shame. And this happens, countless times every single day.
That sounds exhausting. And then there's the victim part you mentioned.
Yes, the victim is the part of you that receives these judgments from the judge, is the one who carries the burden of blame, guilt, and shame. It's that inner voice that whispers, "See, you knew you weren't good enough," or "You messed up again." And the judge readily agrees, reinforcing these negative beliefs, all stemming from a belief system you never consciously chose.
Right.
And here's a really key insight. Anything that contradicts this book of law triggers a feeling of fear, like a knot in your stomach, that solar plexus sensation.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Right. Breaking these internal rules opens up old emotional wounds, leading to what Ruiz calls emotional poison. Even if the book of law is based on flawed information, or it's just plain wrong for you now,
It still feels safe.
it feels safe and familiar.
Yeah.
So we cling to it.
So even if a belief makes us miserable, we stick with it because it's what we know, because breaking it feels scary.
Precisely. And think about how we deal with mistakes. The judge condemns us, the victim wallows in guilt, but true learning, Ruiz argues, would be paying the price of a mistake just once. Learn the lesson, move on.
But we don't do that, do we?
No. Instead, we replay it endlessly in our minds, rejudging ourselves, re-feeling the shame, and re-punishing ourselves. It's like we make ourselves pay thousands of times for the same error.
Oh, man.
And sadly, we often do the same to others, right? Holding on to their mistakes, making them pay repeatedly with our judgment or reminders.
Yeah, I can see that.
Ruiz makes this really powerful claim that something like 95% of the beliefs we carry around, the ones stored in our book of law, are actually lies.
95%, that's staggering.
It is, and they're causing tremendous suffering. The dream of the planet, he says, even normalizes this suffering, making fear and anxiety feel like just another part of life, expected almost.
Like personal hell, maybe?
As you think about it, this constant self-criticism and fear. Yeah, it really does sound like a kind of personal hell, doesn't it? A state of mind fueled by these negative fear-based emotions.
So, okay, if we're living under this system, these unconscious agreements that are causing us so much pain, is there a way out? Is there an escape button?
That is the big question, isn't it? And thankfully, yes, absolutely. Ruiz says that if we can recognize that these agreements are running our lives, and if we're not happy with the dream we're currently living,
then we can change it.
then the power lies in changing those agreements. Every single time you break an old fear-based agreement, the energy you were using to maintain it actually comes back to you. You reclaim that power.
Okay, that's helpful.
It is. And he offers the 4 agreements as incredibly powerful tools for dismantling these energy-draining agreements and stepping into real personal freedom.
And the very first of these agreements is?
Be impeccable with your word.
Yeah.
Ruiz emphasizes that this one is the most crucial agreement. Honestly, often the most challenging to truly live by.
The most important and the hardest.
Yeah.
Okay.
He believes that if you could master just this one, you could essentially create heaven on earth in your own life.
Wow. That's a big claim.
It is. Now, when Ruiz talks about things like black magic,
Hmm.
he's not talking about, casting spells in a cauldron. He's talking about the harmful power of negative words and intentions, using words to create negativity.
Okay. So, impeccable with your word. It sounds simple on the surface, but I have a feeling there's a lot more to it than just, being polite or not swearing.
You're absolutely right. There's depth there. Ruiz defines word as the very power you have to create.
The power to create.
Yeah. It's a gift, he says, maybe from God, from a higher power, whatever resonates with you. Think about it. Through your words, you express your thoughts, your feelings, your intentions. It's the tool you use to manifest everything in your life. Your intent comes through your word.
So our words have a real impact, almost like a form of magic. Is that too strong?
Not at all. He uses that exact language. He described the word as a double-edged sword.
Okay.
One edge is the misuse of the word, which can create immense suffering for yourself and others. Think gossip, harsh criticism, lies. The other edge is impeccability of the word, which has the power to create beauty, love, freedom, truth, encouragement, self-acceptance. All the magic you possess, he says, is based on your word. Pure magic is using your word for good.
And misusing it is like black magic.
Exactly. Using it to harm and destroy. Remember that example he gives of Hitler? His words, based on fear and manipulation, had an absolutely devastating impact on a global scale.
That really brings home the sheer power that words can hold, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And on a smaller, everyday scale, we're constantly casting spells with our opinions, often without even realizing it.
How so?
Well, think about casually saying to someone, "Wow, you look really tired today." That might seem harmless, right? Trivial, even.
Yeah.
But if that person is already feeling insecure or down, your words can land like a little curse, reinforcing a negative belief they might already have about themselves.
I see.
Children are particularly vulnerable. How many times does a parent unknowingly plant a seed of doubt with a careless remark like, "Oh, you're just not good at math," or "You're so clumsy"?
Yeah, that can stick.
That belief can stick with them for years, maybe their whole life. So being impeccable with your word means being really mindful of the impact your words have, both on yourself and on others.
It's like we're constantly programming each other with our language, for better or worse.
Precisely. And that's why understanding impeccability is so important. Ruiz explains that impeccable comes from a Latin root meaning without sin.
Without sin. Okay, that sounds religious.
It does, but he uses it in a specific way. In this context, sin isn't about breaking religious rules. It's anything you do that goes against yourself.
Against yourself. How?
Every thought, feeling, or especially word that diminishes your own well-being, that rejects yourself, that's a sin in this view. So being impeccable is the opposite. It's about not going against yourself. It's about self-respect, self-acceptance.
So it's not about being perfect, like never making a mistake. It's more about being true to myself and using my words in a way that honors that.
Exactly. You've got it. When you're impeccable with your word, you take responsibility for your actions. Absolutely. But you don't judge or blame yourself endlessly for them.
Okay.
From this perspective, the idea of sin shifts from being primarily a moral issue to one of self-care, of self-love. The biggest sin, according to Ruiz, is self-rejection.
Wow.
Impeccability, on the other hand, leads to self-acceptance and self-love. It means not using words negatively towards yourself, that harsh inner critic, or towards others.
Even criticizing others hurts us.
Ruiz argues yes. Even when you seem to be criticizing someone else, you're ultimately hurting yourself by creating negativity, putting that energy out there, and inviting negative reactions back. Impeccability is about directing your energy towards truth and love, for yourself first and foremost.
It's like that idea that the energy we put out into the world comes right back to us. Karma, maybe?
Precisely. It's a very similar principle.
Yeah.
But it's difficult, isn't it? Because we've been conditioned through that domestication process to misuse the power of our word. We've learned to lie, maybe to protect ourselves or fit in. We've learned to gossip, to complain, to spread negativity. Gossip, Ruiz says, is like a potent form of black magic.
Girl, that's strong.
Yeah, spreading emotional poison through carelessly spoken words and opinions, often about people we barely even know. Think about a time you heard someone gossiping. Didn't it leave a slightly icky feeling, even if it wasn't about you?
Yeah, it definitely can. Kind of lowers the vibe.
Exactly. That's the emotional poison being transferred. And we've all experienced the sting of someone else's negative words, haven't we? A thoughtless comment, a harsh judgment. It can sometimes stick with you for days or longer.
Absolutely. Words can build up or tear down so easily. It's kind of scary, actually.
They can. They really hold that power. And the first step towards breaking free from this cycle of negativity, from this misuse of the word, is just to become aware. Aware of the power of your words, and then to make a conscious choice to try to be impeccable with them.
Just try, not be perfect.
Right. Try. And truth is the foundation of impeccability. Lies create darkness and confusion, while truth, spoken impeccably, has the power to liberate, to heal.
Okay, this has given me a lot to think about. Really practical stuff, too. So if someone listening wants to start practicing this, like today, in their daily lives, what are a couple of concrete things they could do?
Great question. Okay, firstly, I'd encourage everyone listening to maybe take just a moment today for some self-reflection. Identify one negative belief you hold about yourself. Just one.
Mm-hmm.
And ask yourself honestly, where did this belief really come from? Was it something someone said, something you learned?
Mm-hmm.
And then ask, is it truly serving me now? Does it help me?
Okay, that's powerful. Questioning the origins. What's the second thing?
Secondly, just try to pay closer attention to the words you use, both in your internal self-talk, that inner dialogue.
Yeah, the judge and victim stuff.
Exactly. And in how you communicate with other people. Just notice. Are your words truthful? Are they kind? Are they necessary? Are they building people up, including yourself? Or are they tearing down? Just notice.
Those are really good, actionable starting points. Awareness and mindfulness around our words.
Exactly.
So, to leave everyone with a final thought to chew on, if your words truly have the power to create, to shape your reality, what kind of world, and maybe more importantly, what kind of self are you actively creating with the language you use every single day?
It's definitely something to ponder, isn't it?
It really is.
Perhaps this deep dive has sparked a curiosity in you and our listeners to explore this further, to really examine the power of your own word and the amazing potential for creating a new, more positive, more authentic dream for yourself.